And we are officially live. Hello, everybody. How are you doing today? Well, my name is Wes, and this is Lori. And today we're going to be talking about accounting, more specifically, Accounting 101. Now, Lori, this is not just like a tutorial showing people how to start from scratch, is it?
No, sir. No. This is all core. That's what we're talking about, how to get things going in the right direction.
Yes. So if you are wanting to learn how to set up ChurchTrac accounting from step one, from scratch, just take a look at our user guide, and we have got some step-by-steps, as well as a great video that you can watch there for that. Now, Lori, speaking of getting help, where's another good place people can get help at?
So if you need attention in ChurchTrac, you're going to want to go up here to the green help in the upper right-hand corner of the software, where you can create a support ticket, request a phone call, access our awesome user guide, whatever tools that you need, including...
Oh, the ChurchTrac Facebook user group.
Yep.
So if you are on Facebook, that is definitely a great place to hang out. The ChurchTrac user group, you can talk to church trackers from all around the world, learn about the software, or just share ministry tips and other knowledge you may have hiding in that brain of yours. So definitely check it out when you get a chance. Well, let's go ahead and let's get started. Now, I'm going to go ahead and shut down the chat, just FYI, because of just the sheer amount of content we're going through and everything. And we're actually going to have a dedicated time at the end with our Q&A mode, where Lori and I, and when I say Lori and I mean mostly Lori, will be answering your questions here for accounting. So hold your questions to the end, and we'll be addressing those. And we'll be here as long as it takes for that at the end. So today, we are going to be covering payees, transaction attachments, printing checks, accounting search, and so much more. Yes, you should have saw Lori. She was doing that, and so much more. So let's go ahead and let's get started with payees, shall we? Now, Lori, what are payees?
Payees are the people or accounts that you pay on a regular basis that you want to create kind of like a memorized transaction, so that you don't have to enter all the details every single time you want to create a transaction.
So it sounds like it saves a lot of time.
It really does. It really does. And there are two ways that you can create these payees. One is on the fly, and one is through intentionality. So if you want to create a payee list because you have this wonderful organized way that you pay your bills, you can go into the accounting screen in ChurchTrac Accounting, up to the payees in the blue bar at the top, and click on payees. And here you can see we actually have a list of payees that we've already created. But to create a new one, you go down to the bottom, you click on the new payee option, name it, whatever you want to name it. We're going to call ours utility. Okay. We're going to say okay, and that takes us to our payee screen where you're going to enter the details. This is an expense. The payee is in place. You can add your utility company's mailing address. This will actually print on the check for you.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, it's actually a really cool tool.
Nice.
You can go to your category, and this is going to be our water and sewer company. Enter the amount that you want to pay. If you have a consistent, maybe you have budgeted billing or something like that, you can enter your amount here. We'll just say easy numbers, okay? You can add a note. That's just for your personal reference. You can add a memo that prints on the check. You can even add a tag, okay? Done, bada bing, bada boom. The other way that you will create your payee is going into the checking account or savings account, wherever you're sending this from. Create your new transaction. Today's date automatically appears. This is an expense. Enter your check number. Okay. Start typing. Let's see.
Thinking through a made-up payee. So just
Let's see.
electric.
Yeah, I don't think well on the fly. Okay, so our electric, go pick your electric category. It's general fund. How much is your bill? Entirely too much because it's been a really warm September-October combination, okay? Fall did not happen in Florida. This is electric. Now, mind you, you don't have to add a tag, but if you're really detail-oriented like I am, just trying to come up with a really nice way of saying that, then you can search by tags in other places. So this tag is really important. You can also add an attachment here, but we're going to talk about that
just
later.
Make sure you save electric right. You misspelled it.
Oh, I did. Well, let's just try that again.
There you go. Yeah, you don't want to have misspelled tags. Eclectic. There you go.
Eclectic.
So
that's there.
I would say that's probably my favorite way of adding a payee, just because you're doing it on the fly.
XYZ, ABC, your town. I don't know what your address is. Okay. The important thing is this is the address for your payee. But you can save this. There was a little box there, and I messed that up. So you can save it by clicking the box that says Save to Payees, and then it saves to your payee. So both ways work. You have these on the fly. You have them, a list that you can create ahead of time. You go, oh my goodness, I forgot one. It's easy enough to correct.
Awesome.
Okay.
Well, that will definitely save a lot of time. So let's talk about another thing. It doesn't necessarily, well, actually it does save a lot of time.
Yes.
Transaction attachments. So story time with Wes. I have served at many different churches, and it seemed like every church I served at, we had this thing that we called the folder. Now, your church may have a folder as well, and I'm talking about, shoebox.
I
yes.
have a shoebox.
So this shoebox, this folder, it is a place where you keep all your receipts. It's a place where you keep all these old invoices and purchase orders and everything else is hanging around. And what's great is it's all there in one place. What's bad is when you need to actually search for it.
There's no organization.
None at all. And I vaguely remember walking into the administrative assistant's office, and she had the entire floor lined with receipts. And I was like, what are you doing? And she's like, I'm trying to find this Walmart receipt. And it was just kind of funny, but also I felt her pain a little bit. So this feature, transaction attachments, is going to help with that. So here's how you use it.
Okay. So if you have a scanner or available to you, a printer, whatever, even take a picture on your phone and save it.
Cell phone?
Yeah, I don't have one of those. I don't have pockets. So it's great because you can actually attach those things, any sort of attachment. I mean, there's not a limitation. So what you can do is you can drag and drop into this field. You can click and search. It doesn't matter. You have all the information you need. So I'm going to drag it from my desktop over here into my bill and drop it in. And boom,
there you go.
I have a receipt.
Nice.
Now, the really nice part about this is when I close this transaction, and we use another feature that I absolutely love, you can search through these. You also have this as a reference point to come back to. Boom, it's there. You want to see it, you click on it, it opens up on your screen. You never lose a bill that way. If they fade out, they don't have that heat, printing thing that they do. You don't have that problem anymore.
That has happened to me once whenever we were trying to pull a receipt, and it was just from a couple of years.
Blank.
You couldn't really read it. Yeah.
Home Depot's real bad.
Yeah. So,
Okay.
and another thing, if you refresh the accounting screen, Lori, this is kind of one of my favorite things about that particular feature is whenever you are looking at all your accounting records here, we have that little paper clip. And so that way, if you're ever wondering, like, does this particular transaction have an attachment? You got a paper clip right there. Look at that. So that's how you can tell. So now it makes me miss Clippy. Oh, Clippy.
Aww.
So
Clippy.
transaction attachments, awesome feature. Definitely encourage you to use that.
Absolutely.
Now, another feature that saves a lot of time and it just makes life a lot easier is printing checks in ChurchTrac. So, Lori, how do we do that?
Well, before you go about printing a check, the first thing you want to do is make sure you have a check to print on.
Yes.
Okay? And you go, well, Lori, how do I know what I'm supposed to go purchase? So if you go into your print checks button all the way at the bottom of your accounting screen, there are check printing options here for you to choose from. In this screen, when you click that button, you're going to get a drop down of your check style. So you have a standard check, which is 3 checks per page. These are regular size pieces of paper, 8.5 by 11.
Okay.
They are pre-printed with the routing number, your account number, this kind of information. ChurchTrac does not print that information for you, so you have to purchase these checks ahead of time. Please don't go purchase the great big ones. Just keep it.
Are you talking about like the real big ones if you win an award?
Yeah, they don't work real well. Plus, on an old school ledger, you had checks too. You're too young to remember that, Wes.
Oh.
Bless your heart. You also have a top voucher and a middle voucher check. So whatever version you're using, make sure you select it in here, okay? You'll see that your settings are already in here. These are tweakable. Be very careful when you tweak these. And also you want to make sure that your fit to page option in your print preview screen is unchecked so that it doesn't squish your information down, because you want everything on the lines that they belong on.
Now, I vaguely remember you telling me about how, because the last thing I want to do is have all these checks that I've purchased and then print on them and mess up printing. Isn't there a way like I can just kind of test it out and make sure all my margins are correct before I just start printing on checks?
Yes. So old school me, I don't like to waste anything. So what I always do is I go back to my print screen, I just grab a check and I try to print multiple times on a blank piece of paper. So you have a print check option in the transaction itself.
Okay.
If you have a check number. If you do not have a check number, you will not have this option because there's nothing to print.
That's good to know.
Okay? So when you go to your print check option, you print on a blank piece of paper, compare the printed material to your check, hold it up to the light, the window, whatever, How do you do that, right?
Yes.
Okay. It's like, what do we call them? Transparencies or something?
Not anymore these days.
Oh, God, I'm old. Okay. So that way you can get your print check settings correct before you go about wasting checks. Because if you waste a check, you also have to go back and change the check number.
Ooh, I didn't even think about that. Yes.
Yeah, it's bad news.
So that is how you print checks.
So at the bottom, you can do one check at a time by the transaction, or you can check off multiple checks and print them. So if you have a stack, put them in the printer, you check them off, and they all just print. It's a beautiful thing, and it's so time-saving.
And you can use this for anything. I mean, it can be when you're paying employees or just random people you're reimbursing or
Bills,
whatever it may be. Okay.
Mm-hmm. Always there.
Awesome.
And this clears once you send them to the print queue, this whole list clears. So it's not like you have to filter it or remember where you left off or anything like that. It's really cool.
Super helpful.
Okay.
All right. Well, Lori, we talked about printing checks. Let's kind of shift gears a little bit and talk about accounting search, which I know is probably your favorite feature.
Okay, I get so excited about this feature. I'm really a nerd when it comes to software, especially our software. This search option up here in the blue bar across the top of your screen, if you have the olive or the violet, it's still going to be there. This is the coolest feature that we have in accounting as far as I'm concerned, because as the bookkeeper, you lose a check. Mm-hmm. You enter something in the wrong account. You put the wrong date on it. You have to figure out, like, where in the world did I put this thing?
Nobody's perfect. I mean, we have to be able to check our mistakes.
As you said.
Yeah.
So this screen actually allows you to select a date. So if you know that you wrote this check within a certain week, you can set your date range. If you know you wrote it to a certain person, like we're going to go with Ben here, okay? You can put Ben's name in here. You can use a reference. You can use a category, a fund, an exact amount. You can search by all transactions, only reconciled transactions, or only unreconciled transactions. So there's so many filters in here.
So basically,
and their multiples can be used.
The question is, what do we not give you the ability to search with? Because I feel like we pretty much lay it out there with every single way to search for a transaction.
Well, you can also search by tags. So pretty much the only thing you can't search by is a memo or a note.
Well, that's pretty good.
Yeah, I'm not even kidding. So when I enter Ben, okay, I just know I got somebody named Ben. I paid him something. I can't remember when. Holy mackerel, I go find him. So I click the search option, and bada bing, there is Ben's transaction. The coolest part about this is it tells me the date I wrote it on. So make your date range open wide if you need it. It tells me how I referenced it, who my payee is, the account that I wrote it from. This is a true story. I had a lady contact me last week. She had written a transaction, couldn't find it. She had 5 or 6 different accounts. So I went in and used the search function, found it, and she had written it from the wrong account. So she was ever so grateful that I was able to find it, and I used our search feature. This is how I troubleshoot for you guys when you send in help. And there's a total here, and then under this plus, it opens up and it gives me the category you use, the fund you use, the amount, and the memo.
Oh, I like the memo, so you know exactly, okay, this was a one-time missionary payment. Good, and now I remember what it's for.
Exactly, because I couldn't remember, right? You know, as you get older, your memory fails you. Okay, Then when you're done with that search, you do want to clear it because you have data in here. Okay, so if you wanted to go and say I had an amount, I know that I had an amount for $265.98, but God help me, I can't remember what I wrote that amount for. I just wrote it somewhere.
Well, use the search.
I can use the search. Boom, there it is. Oh, I wrote it to the electric company. Look at me.
That was a pretty high bill that last month.
Yeah, and that was in January. We didn't have a cold January. We were probably using AC. But that search feature allows me to have all these details at my fingertips, and this can be used for multiple items or singular.
All right.
How about that?
Awesome.
I know.
All right, so moving past Lori's favorite feature of accounting search, the next feature we want to cover here, not necessarily a feature, but more so just a process, and this is
a duty.
A duty.
It's a duty.
It is a duty.
You need to do this.
And it is account reconciliation. Now, Lori, I'm not qualified to even talk about this. You're the person. Tell them about account reconciliation. What does it mean, and why are we doing it?
So back in the old days, when people had checkbooks and transaction registers, we had to reconcile our bank statements. I get that you guys don't do that anymore. My kids don't do it. You don't do it. But as a church, we still have to do it.
Yes.
So we want to make sure that we're keeping track of transactions that have been entered into the account register and that have cleared the bank. That's the key. It doesn't matter what your transaction register says. It matters what the bank says. And if you get a monthly statement that doesn't agree with your transaction register, then you need to figure it out. Okay? This can tell a whole lot of information, but it's really vital. Okay? So the important thing is to go into your Reconcile button here at the bottom. This statement opening balance is going to pull from the last time you reconciled. It should also match the beginning balance on your bank statement.
Okay.
So this is going to pull from either the beginning balance transaction or the last time you reconciled. Two different places, but it's going to match the opening balance on your bank statement.
Okay.
The second piece of information is the ending balance on your bank statement. If you find this on the statement, I don't make this up. Well, I mean, I do for these intensive purposes, but normally you do this on your bank statement. You take that number, you put it in. The statement ending date is also on your bank statement. Don't guess about this. Pull it off the bank statement. Some banks at the end of the month. Some do it the first week of the month. Some do it in the middle of the month. It depends on your bank. Okay. Once you get this information in here, you click Continue, and the next screen opens up. I get this question all the time. I can't change this information. You're right, you can't. This is the reconciliation screen. This pulls from what you've already entered.
Okay.
Okay? So you'll notice that the cleared balance and the statement ending balance pull from right here, and the difference is these transactions.
Okay.
Okay? So you're going to check off your transactions based on what your statement shows you. Cool part about this, I can sort by date. I can add as many entries as I need. Reference is really cool because on a bank statement, you have all of your deposits first, you have all of your checks, and you have all of your regular other transactions that were not checks.
Okay.
So you can sort by this, pulling your check number to the top, your deposits together, and your payments together. Really cool options.
Nice.
Sort by payee. Bank statements are not alphabetical. You don't have to worry about this. Amount is a whole nother thing. But this amount is important because you need to make sure it matches the transaction amount. Okay? When you're done, you should come to a $0 balance. I entered something incorrectly because I do not have a $0 balance, Wes.
Uh-oh.
What happened? I don't know. I got to go figure it out. I know what happened. We added a transaction. Okay? So now I have to return to the register and figure it out. That's the important part. Okay. So what happens when I've checked off all those transactions? You're like, well, Lori, you got a new letter on your register. C means that you have marked this transaction as cleared. It is not complete. You have not reconciled this transaction.
Okay.
Okay? So until you figure out what brings you back to zero and go in, it's probably a combination of things, but you're going to go in, uncheck, find it, whatever's not on the bank statement, or you forgot to add something. Put it on there, fix it, and go back to your reconcile screen and start all over again.
Okay.
Okay? That's reconciliation.
All right. And that's one of those things where I feel like if people get stuck and they need some help, they can reach out to us, right?
We're here. We have a great support team that is well versed in this. Some of us have actually used it. Some of us just know about it. Yes. But nonetheless, we're here to help. One more thing I want to add, Wes, about your reconciliation. At the end, there is a little box that's going to pop up, and it's going to have 2 buttons. One is a print reconciliation report. Print the report.
Okay.
There are details that are going to be in that report that are not going to show up in the other report that you have access to in our report screen. And then finish your stuff and you're ready to go for the next time.
Awesome.
Yay.
All right. Well, the last feature we want to talk about here is the giving screen deposit. So the giving screen deposit. So in ChurchTrac, the giving screen and the accounting screen are designed to work seamlessly together. And
they're independent, though.
They are independent, but they're also designed to work together. I feel like it almost looked like we choreographed that.
But we didn't. We just, great minds, great minds.
So let's talk about what this looks like and why it's such a great tool to use.
Mm-hmm. Okay. The one thing that I see in support on a regular basis is that giving deposits don't match. So if you run a report from the giving screen and you run a deposit report and you run a deposit report from the accounting screen, they should be identical. There should be no differences. The important part about this is the details. So when you go in and you have, let me pick my other one, the giving summary details here, okay? These details are imperative for updating your budget, which happens automatically in the accounting screen, okay? So when you want these details to come over, you don't want to manually create a giving deposit that just sends $1,354.45 to your general offerings.
But why don't we want to do that?
Because that's not accurate. That's not what people gave to.
Okay.
Okay? If I give to general offerings, that's great. But if I designate money, that money is to be used for what I designated it for. That's just how we do things at the church. So you want to make sure that these details come over. The secret to that, the best and easiest way to do this is to click this Create Deposit button. It allows you to go through this process, look at all the people who gave, okay? You can uncheck them if something didn't clear or you'd have to go back and add things later, you can just go and re-add those things that clear after the fact.
Okay.
Select your account. It's very important to do this in the right account, okay? Then create your deposit. It was created successfully. Next question, where in the world did it go? Well, it did exactly what you told it to. It went in here, and there's my $1,354.45. There's my deposit. It's called a giving deposit. And look, there's all my details.
Oh, you have all the details for all the different categories and funds that came into that.
Absolutely. This is imperative because this will automatically update your budget for you.
Okay.
Okay?
Which is important if you are using a budget. And we will be talking about budgets another time.
Yes, coming soon, though. Okay. So, Wes, that is what we have going on for accounting right now, okay? We're going to turn it over and maybe do a Q&A.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah, we could spend all day talking about payees and transaction attachments, and especially the search screen with this one because she loves that feature so much. But we want to go ahead and start our Q&A mode and enable that. So that way it gives everyone just an opportunity to submit their questions so we can actually answer those in real time here. And so we're going to go ahead and enable that now. So everyone should have the ability to start submitting their questions to us. And while you're thinking of your questions, I do want to remind you about our Facebook group because, Lori, that is just such a great place for people to hang out.
It's actually a really cool place, Wes, because the answers that you get in your Facebook group are typically from users, people who are practically using the program, so they have practical knowledge to pass on. Yes, as support, we can offer those answers, but it's always nice to know that somebody else liked it or used it the same way and had good results.
Yes. And speaking of just getting help and talking to others, one of the best ways I get help is actually just watching videos. And so if you're the type of person that likes to learn visually and just watch a video and kind of follow along, our YouTube channel is just such a great place to do that because it just gives you the opportunity to watch all of our previous webinars that we have posted. We have a lot of quick tip videos, step-by-steps, and everything else in between. So definitely check that out and hit the subscribe button on YouTube. So that way when we release our new videos, you will be reminded about it. Well, let's go ahead. I see a lot of questions.
Gosh.
They're pouring in. Lori. Now, again, if you have to leave now, thank you so much for joining, but we are prepared to stay here until they turn off the lights on us here to answer your questions.
Okay.
You looked at me like, oh, man, how long are we going to be here? We'll be here as long as it takes. Let's do it.
30 is late.
All right, so all right, here's a question from Tracy. So I'm going to put up Tracy's question. Lori, Tracy is asking, why add a tag for a payee?
Tracy, that is completely optional. A tag is just another ability for you to filter things if you need to later. I am very detail-oriented person, especially when it comes to accounting, so I put tags or notes or memos on things, but a tag is searchable. So if you had a special offering come in or a memorial offering that was coming in for a certain person, you could put their name on that offering so that when it's searched in the search feature, my favorite, again, they can go and search that name and pull up all the memorial offerings that were provided to that person. So it's not that you have to tag every transaction, just the ones that you need. Just practical use.
Awesome. All righty. I see another good question here. This question here, let me show it. So is it possible to print a deposit form from ChurchTrac?
Well, yes, it is. Okay. When you are on a giving transaction, you can generate what's called a batch report. That is down here at the bottom of the list of giving transactions under your Create Deposit button.
Okay.
This is a setting that has to be set up in your giving screen settings under your preferences. But when you get that batch report, it's going to tell you how many checks were provided and the categories they were written to, how much cash was provided and the categories that it was given to. If you have online giving, you're going to have credit card transactions and ACH in here. So this is going to provide you a lot of detail. Again, you're only going to have this option if you turn that setting on in the settings, admin settings. Okay? Does that help?
Yeah.
Okay,
that helps.
good.
So this question's from Kim. Kim's asking, how do you know on the accounting page what has been reconciled?
Such a good question, Kim.
That was from Kim.
So the C's are for cleared, but as you can see, I have these capital R's on every transaction for transactions that I have reconciled in the past. So if you have a capital R, at some point, somebody was reconciling transactions and they're finished, they're locked, they can't be edited, okay? What's really cool about this is you can unreconcile if you need to, but it's a batch at a time.
I was going to ask you how you did that. How do you unreconcile?
That is down here at the bottom. You go, well, Lori, that's the reconcile button. I know I'm not crazy, I promise. There is an option here that says enter the following from your statement, or if you need to undo a previous transaction, you click here. This will take you back and allow you to see the last reconciled date and how many transactions were reconciled with that. If you are updating a payee name or something to that effect, you can do that in the transactions themselves. Let's go back here to something. So I can update the category in the fund. If you need to update the payee, you're going to have to unreconcile.
Okay.
If you unreconcile and you change a monetary amount, you could be creating issues for yourself. So reach out to support before you do that because we don't want you to create any issues for yourself. Okay?
Perfect. All right. Now, I got a question here from Charlene. Charlene's asking, I only have one account set up. How can I reset up on account for 2 checking and reset the balances? Does that make sense?
Okay. I'm
Charlene?
sorry, Pastor Charlene. It sounds like you created one account and put everything in it. In the accounts screen, where you set up your accounts and see your funds, you have the ability here to add a bank account. When you add that bank account, you would start with the beginning balance transaction pulled from the last bank statement before you started using ChurchTrac. Start there. The account that's wrong, you can't filter that or anything like that to undo transactions. So it's better to create 2 new accounts with the correct beginning balances and go from there. One of the things that I didn't talk about is there is an import feature, okay? If you are trying to go back, especially like now it's the end of the year and you want to go back to the beginning of the year, you have an import feature. Wes covered this in our last webinar, where you can bring in different file types and import that way. You cannot import a CSV though.
All right. Next question is from Leela. How do you avoid a check?
Good question.
How do you avoid a check?
Okay. So because you can edit transactions, thankfully, okay, you can go in here as long as it's not reconciled, and if it didn't clear, it should not have been reconciled. That's a big no-no, guys. I can edit the transaction, remove the payee, and type void, okay? The categories and funds don't matter because we're not doing any money here. We're going to make this a $0 transaction. Okay? And in the note, instead of having it for lawn care, we would put the reason blah, 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 why we avoided the check. Okay? Then you close it. It doesn't affect your bank account balance or anything like that, but it gives you a reason. If this is a check number that you're voiding, leave it in place. Okay?
Perfect. All right. Next question here. Can you correct the beginning and ending balance? If not, do you have to start over?
You can correct the beginning balance. Now, there's 2 things in the beginning balance we're talking about. We're talking about an initial transaction, which is our beginning balance transaction.
So we're talking about like setting up the account from step 1.
Right. So this transaction right here, our beginning balance transaction, is 100% editable. Not edible, but editable.
Editable.
Okay. So you can correct this transaction right here, and I keep pointing to my screen. Y'all can't see the screen or see me pointing, but you want to make sure that this matches the ending balance on your bank statement the month prior to beginning ChurchTrac. So the date on this beginning balance transaction is 1/1/20. What we would do is make this 12/31/19. Okay. That would be our beginning balance. This can have all kinds of details in it. You can have your building fund, you can have your youth fund. This is a multiple line of transaction typically, and the total should match what you have on your bank statement. I think what you were talking about is actually in the reconcile screen in the statement opening balance. This balance pulls from either your beginning balance transaction or your last bank statement. It is not changeable or editable because it's pulling from that last reconciliation or the beginning balance. So something is wrong if that's wrong.
Okay, good. So question from Karen, how do you import ACH payments? How do you import ACH payments?
Well, Karen, I have to assume that you're talking about from a bank statement because you can't just import a regular ACH without it being attached from the bank or something. So the import functionality is within the account itself, and it is related to either an OFX, a QFX, a QIF, or a QBO type of import. This comes from your bank. If your bank does not have this type of import thing, then you won't be able to do it. You're going to have to manually enter those transactions. Okay.
All right. A question from Tracy here, kind of following up on reconciliations. When you reconcile, does it make the transaction unchangeable?
Yes, Tracy, it does. The only thing you would be able to edit on that transaction would be the category and the fund. Other than that, you have to unreconcile it to be able to change the amount or the payee.
Okay. Perfect. So then the next question here is actually, Tracy again, what info do I need to refer a friend? Phone, email?
This is cool, guys. That's a good question. It's not accounting related.
But I approve.
So up in the black bar across the top of your software, okay, up here where it says ChurchTrac, it's going to have your login name, information you can use. There's a refer a friend option. When you click it, it gives you a link. This link is what you give them to sign up, and it has your referral code on it. So you can copy the link and then just give them the link via an email or text message or however you want to get it to them, and that way they can sign up for ChurchTrac, get the discount for signing up, and then you get the referrer discount. Bing, everybody wins.
Yeah, you save, they save, everybody saves.
Yay!
I like saving.
I do too.
All right, so this is questions from Sandra. Lori, Sandra's asking, why doesn't the fund report equal the balanced bank statement?
That's a very good question. Okay, so the balanced bank statement is only showing you what has cleared the bank. 9 times out of 10, there are outstanding transactions. Those transactions are either from the end of the month prior because they didn't have time to clear the bank before the statement closed, or for the end of the month you're working on because, again, they didn't have that. Well, your fund statement is going to include all those transactions, whether they've cleared or not. The reports in ChurchTrac are not bank statement dependent. They are based on what the transactions are in the actual transaction register. Was that clear?
Yeah,
Okay.
I think so. It was a little bit over my head, I'm not going to lie, but I think it helped her.
Okay.
So good. So question here. When you import your bank statement, although the amounts are the same, yet they enter as separate transactions. So I'll reread this. When you import your bank statement, although the amounts are the same, yet they enter as separate transactions. Do we know what they're talking about on that one?
Potter's House, I may need a little bit more information because the bank statement is individual transactions. So I don't know if you're referring to online giving or if you're referring to specific types of transactions. Give me a little bit more detail and I'll be glad to answer that question.
Just create a support ticket and we'll dive in that one-on-one with you. Good question. All right, so this one with questions from Daryl. Is there a way to integrate online giving if it is not the one that ChurchTrac offers?
That is a very good question, Daryl. There is not another integration, okay? So that is important to note. There is not another integration. However, that doesn't mean that you can't import those transactions. In ChurchTrac, there is an import option in the giving screens. You just go create a date, okay? Now, I say this because you're usually a giving export from whatever company you're using is going to have a multiple date option here. So you're going to have a week's worth or a month's worth or whatever time frame you set for the export. So you just need a fresh date to open up. When you click import, we have the option to auto-detect the import type, but you can import from Givelify, PayPal, PushPay, Subsplash, Tidely, and is there any more? No.
No, or you can do manual mode.
Yes, manual is not as easy, but it does work. You can select options like create the new category if you have giving categories that you haven't got in place. You can also add names to your database of people who've given that are not in your database, but it's a drag and drop feature. So you can drag it off your desktop and in here, or you can wander out and search. Either way, you have the ability to import those transactions. So there's no integration, but the import is seamless and really easy to do. And all the information that comes in is batched as online giving.
Cool.
Doesn't get any better.
All right. Next question is from Russ. Russ is asking, can you have multi-screens open at the same time to do comparison?
Russ, it is possible to have multiple screens open if you're using an incognito mode in a regular browser, but it is not recommended. If you have 3 tabs open and they're all displaying different areas of ChurchTrac, you can create issues with that, so it's not recommended. It would be better for you to create a report to compare to what you have on screen, which I do a lot. You know I do.
Yeah.
I create a report and print it, and I sit and check things off and compare because I troubleshoot people's accounts, and that's actually an easier way because I have something to write on.
Well, not necessarily even printing, too. I mean, you could just have the PDF right there side by side.
So if your screen's big enough, you can certainly compare that way, but don't open multiple versions of ChurchTrac at the same time.
So question from Richard, does the account tie in with the bank account and transactions?
There's not an integration at the bank, okay? The entries that you are putting in ChurchTrac should match what is clearing the bank or going through the bank. So while there's not a bank integration, that import feature is there, and you should be entering your transactions according to what is going through the bank.
Correct. But you can use that import tool in accounting to import those transactions as long as your bank provides that right file type there.
Correct.
And Joseph is kind of a follow-up to that, but Joseph's asking, so I have to manually import input each account, tithing, general offering, building fund, etc.?
No. I think that the confusion, Joseph, may be that you're calling your categories accounts and we're calling a bank account an account. So defining those is very important. A bank account in ChurchTrac is anything that has a number associated with a bank account number, savings account number, CDs, whatever. Your categories are going to be your general offerings, your building program, your youth ministry, and these kind of things. So your transactions can be multiple category transactions that include those categories, as well as deposits from the giving screen. For example, when I go into my checking account, I have a giving screen deposit that has multiple categories here. These are categories that money has been denoted to or designated to, and that's the important thing to remember, as well as a fund that money is stored within.
All right. And then kind of a follow-up, but Daryl is asking, how do we integrate our bank account?
You can't.
You can't, but you can use the import tool if your bank account does provide that with. Next question is, let's look at Joseph's question here. When we put the money into the accounts, it's not adding up, and it comes over the amount we have, and it's over what we put in. This is kind of one of those situations where we may have to kind of look at it more one-on-one and see what's going on.
Joseph, it sounds like that you have something going awry somewhere. So definitely put in a support ticket. We'll take a look at what you're doing. Give us some details, because that's always important. Or we'll go back and forth a couple of times, which we just like to have it all up front so we know. If, in fact, you feel like that a phone call would be better, you can schedule a phone call with support as well, and they'll be glad to help you with those questions. All
right. And this is a good question from Franklin about checks. How do you reset the next check number feature if it has gotten off?
That's a very good question. Right now, it's going to take the last check number entered. So, for example, my last check number, my most recent date is 4563. The next check I write would go to 4564 automatically.
Okay.
We updated this recently because people were having issues with ACHs, and they were putting in like an 8 or 10-digit number, and it would just add one to that, and that's not what we want. We want to make sure that it's functioning the way you need it to.
Okay, perfect. All right, so good question from Franklin. So question from Kim. Kim's talking about bringing over bank info. Can you explain how to remove duplicate items that you import?
Kim, I can't show you because I don't have a bank import, but when you use this import feature, I might be able to show you in the user guide, although I don't have it pulled up. When you use the import feature, the very first thing that's going to happen is your import's going to come in and your transactions are going to be down the left side of your screen. You're going to have buttons in the middle that are going to allow you to review each transaction. You're going to be able to select ones that you want to import, or you can import them all. If you import all, there is a red button that says Remove Duplicates. My recommendation for importing your bank statement is that you only import your expense transactions. Your giving screen transactions need to be created from giving because you have the category detail. Don't bring in your bank deposit giving deposit, because the only detail you're going to get is general offerings or tithes and offerings or whatever your main category is. You're going to lose. So again, there's a red button that says Remove Possible Duplicates. When you click that, it takes everything out that it's comparing to your transaction register. So that should help.
Yeah. So a question from Potter's House. If you import through import and have entered the transaction, it creates two transactions. Why? So is that kind of going along with what you were talking about?
That's kind of exactly what I was just talking about with Kim.
That's kind of what I thought. I just want to double check.
Yeah.
So good. All right, so we got that one answered. Joseph asked a good question here. I always like to just kind of remind everybody. I'd like to schedule a phone call because sometimes It's just easier when you're trying to work through this stuff. And I 100% on board that. So if you ever want to schedule a phone call with us, all you have to do is click that green help button and go to our online user guide. And there you will actually see a button above creating a support ticket where people can just click schedule a call. And from there, you just pick a time that works best for you, and then we will give you a call, and we will work through whatever accounting issue or whatever it may be you need help with. So we try to make it easy to get out there.
And we totally get it. I mean, sometimes it's a lot to type out, like, I don't understand what I've done, or I've really made a mess, or, you know, I need specific help with this. That's why the call is kind of easy, because you can give us a synopsis and the call request information, and then we can take it from there.
Perfect. And then another question, this is kind of more on the giving screen, but so it looks like Jackie's having some trouble getting Givelify to properly import. Reach out to us on that. That way we can check and see maybe Givelify changed something on the file types that they provide.
Givelify is also really easy to mix up as far as exporting transactions, because you can export deposit transactions and you can export giving transactions, and it's the giving transaction that we want. If it's the other file, we're not going to know. It doesn't import because it doesn't recognize the fields. So that may be part of the problem, Jackie.
Awesome. Well, it looks like we pretty much have answered all the questions. I'm kind of blown away how fast.
And it's not 7:30.
Yes. Just to remind everybody, you know, we covered a lot of content today. Lori, I mean, search, transaction attachments, and everything else. So we don't expect you to be able to just all of a sudden remember all this like through osmosis, where it just appears in your brain. But if you ever have to go back videos and learn these features, just go to our YouTube page or our online user guide where you can learn more about all these features. And we just make it easy for you to get help and support that way. And as always, just reach out to us for support by clicking that help button. And then we got one last question from Tracy that we can answer real fast. So to get a report of the offerings only, do I need to tag those transactions?
Well, if you're doing it from the giving screen, you actually have a set of reports in the giving screen that allows you to do giving totals by date or a category summary by date. And these reports are really, really helpful. But if you're going to accounting, you shouldn't have to tag a transaction as long as you have, you can do a category report, a category overview. There's several reports. If you're looking for something specific, reach out to us via support, because we may be able to help you with this, because the search feature alone, go back to my favorite. Sorry, I have to.
Search.
I love search. So if I go in here and I say payee contains giving screen, it'll pull up all of my giving screen deposits. So I don't necessarily have to use a tag to do that. So if you're consistent with your naming in the payee, you can look at it that way.
All right, that helps.
So cool. I love this. I love this feature.
Well, great. Well, those are all the questions for today. We had so many great questions. Thank you, everybody, for joining us. So many people with so many great questions. We hope this was really helpful for you. We will be having another webinar in a few weeks where we're going to be talking about what, Lori?
Budgets.
Budgets. And so we are going to be going through all the ins and outs of creating a budget in ChurchTrac. Again, we'll have Lori here with us as we tackle that together. And so be on the lookout for some emails on that. And as always, if you need anything else, just reach out to us at ChurchTrac and just click that green help button to get support, and we'll be there in a jiff.
Support at ChurchTrac.com.
There you go. Support at ChurchTrac.com is our email. Yes, that's right. I'm like sitting there thinking, support, what kind of website is that? All right. Well, you all have a fantastic rest of your week, and we will see you next time.
Bye.